Yay! Hello, humans. Dr. Saara here, and today we have a wonderful guest who's going to help ADHDers and non-ADHDers. So if you don't have ADHD, do not worry. You can definitely benefit from this information as well. But we have Janice here, who is an amazing human being who helps all sorts of people get organized. So we'll let Janice introduce herself a little bit and tell us what her business is and what she does.
Hi, everyone. So I am Janice Rostron. I am a professional organizer and chronic disorganization specialist. I started my business Just Focus and Reorganize back in 2015 in Los Angeles, and then built it up, hired some employees to build the business with me. And then of course, shut down in 2020, but we don't want to talk about that. And then back again, and in 2022, I moved to Denver and expanded the business here in Denver. So I have clients in Los Angeles, clients in Denver, and very happy to be here. Like I said, a chronic disorganization specialist. So I got a specialist certificate maybe 2 years ago. And that's really helped my business, learning more about you ADHDers. I'm not an ADHDer, but I love working with people with ADHD or any chronic disorganization habits and histories and all of that. So happy to be here.
Awesome. So I'm just curious. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, but I'm just curious. When did you or how did you come across ADHD humans? Did you realize that we're just messier than other people, or we need more help, or we don't know where to start? Or do you have a story? Was it like one person and then you're like, oh, these people need my help more than other people?
Actually, it goes back to before my organizing days. So before this, I was an elementary school teacher. And that was definitely my first introduction, firsthand one-on-one working with somebody with ADHD and working with the little ones. They're not necessarily most of them are not diagnosed at that point. All kids are fidgety, all kids have a lot of energy, but you see those ADHD or kids above and beyond and, not quite in the mix of the other fidgeting, small humans that I was teaching. So that was kind of my first introduction to it, and learning that process and the testing process and all of that, and seeing huge improvements in one particular student over the course of a year once they had a diagnosis. And it was like, oh, now we get it. What can we do to support? And just seeing the progress was pretty amazing. And so that was my first introduction. But then I realized when I started organizing and, wasn't quite sure what type of clients I wanted to work with or who was out there, who would even want organizing sessions. And one of my first clients was, again, undiagnosed. She was, well into her, I think she was late 40s, maybe early 50s, and definitely had all of those traits, but undiagnosed, didn't understand why she was going through, multiple, assistants and like, what do I need to help me? And couldn't quite figure it out. And I was kind of seeing all of those traits, the short attention span, losing items, not being able to keep track of stuff, all the piles everywhere, all of that. So that was kind of my like, oh, these are the people I would like to help because, they definitely are excited about the service and are ready for finding some order in their chaos. And I love doing that for them.
Awesome. My phone, I plugged my computer in and then I went, you can hear me?
You went away.
Am I back? Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Before we started recording this, I told Janice I hate editing. So we're leaving that in there. And thanks for sticking with us. Yeah, let's go back to the piles. I
Do it.
This way of organizing made so much sense just in my brain. And then I discovered it was an ADHD thing. Um, and I have my own organizational system. And it's actually funny because it revolves, it is a pure mess in here. But if I tip my camera down a little, under these blue things, you'll see different paper organized.
Mhm.
And then if I have a medical document, I just lift this thing up and put it in there. And I'm like, if I can't see it, like the other thing about our ADHD brains is if we don't see it, it doesn't exist for us. So then
Yep.
100% we forget about it and our bills are late or we do things at the very last minute or like we mean to get to something. And if we don't write it down or keep track of it somehow and then have a reminder, like it just totally disappears and it's out of sight, out of mind. um Object permanence is the technical
Yep.
term for that. So I have kind of organized the way that I organize in piles, and then the things that I need to address, like maybe at the end of the year if I have anything medical, like I know it's in there but I don't need to look at it right now. And then all the other things are still organized in piles. So working with the pile piece, do you keep, when you're with an ADHD human, do you like just make the piles easier, more manageable to look at, or what's that look like for them?
Yeah, as long as, so I always like to say that you want piles with purpose, which sounds like exactly what you're doing, that you are, like piles are okay. Like I'm not here for everything to be a clean surface. We all love clean surfaces in the organizing world, but um, as long as those piles make sense to you, and everybody's going to say, oh, of course they do, but then inevitably I uncover things like, ew, there's that late bill. There's that form I was supposed to turn in or whatever. So
Yeah.
either by category or by importance, like as long as you have some sort of system that works for you and your brain, that's the way to do it. So, if I really try, I mean, you have a pile on top of pile, which is okay as long as you know that that's where that is. But I
Uh-huh.
really try to kind of keep those piles separate. Um, I'm a big fan of the vertical files, like, to have on a desk. But a lot of times the ADHDers, like it doesn't quite, there's something about putting something vertical that just doesn't make sense to them. So the horizontal files will work. And there's, a lot of different tools for that. But yeah, as long as they're, like I said, piles with purpose
I love that.
is the way to go. And make sure you're reassessing those piles because life happens, life changes, some piles may be irrelevant, some that may be down at the bottom are more relevant now. So just having a system of assessment too. And, maybe I always like the, beginning or end of the year is always like a good time to kind of just refresh and like, what do I need for taxes? What do I need for this or that? So yeah,
Yeah.
piles are okay.
Piles are good. See, we're not broken.
Nope, not at
What
all.
is your, I don't know if this is a personal question and I don't know if this is an ADHD thing or not, but actually I do know now that I said it out loud. Because when our brains forget something, I mean, forgets things very easily if we don't see them, that is somehow linked to a little bit of hoarding. Because when we see the thing that we're hoarding, if we put it away and we don't see it for years, then the memories come back. So then if it's a certain thing, like you can't even remember that thing, but you see that thing and then it initiates memories and we're like, oh, so maybe that's why it's so hard for me to get rid of certain things. Like I'm very attached to clothing. I don't know why. And any sort of wood, my garage cannot fit a car because I'm saving all my wood because one day, maybe when I'm retired, 30 years from now, I'm going to do woodworking, but I'm like
Yeah.
really collecting it. So I guess if it's something that means a lot to you, like, of course, keep it. But let's go back to like paper and organizing. When do we get to, or what's a good suggestion to get rid of all those papers and piles if we're no longer using them anymore?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And I don't really have many hard and fast rules because there's kind of the same system with every home or home office I go into, but I try not to have like hard and fast rules because it's not gonna, they fly out the window with each individual client. So a lot of times having me as an organizer, like I'm not your spouse, I'm not your kids, I'm not a family member, like there's no judgment at all. And a lot of times that kind of gives the ability to release some of that stuff. Like they just kind of, a lot of my clients just kind of want that permission. One client, receipts is a good example. Like, a lot of my clients, I mean, again, like you said, this is true of ADHDers or not, but a lot of clients, they hold on to receipts. Do I need to return that thing? Do I need this for tax purposes at some point? But sometimes you're holding on to the nonsense receipts. So the ones you'll never have to reference ever again. And one of my clients literally had a pile of receipts that she had no use for. And she was like, is it okay if I throw these away? Like, yes, of course. So I think just having that, being okay. And I always tell my clients, like, I want to leave that when I leave you, I want you to be satisfied and feel okay with every decision you made. And again, they're making all the decisions. Like I'm not telling you, I can give you permission for sure, but I'm not the one saying, hey, throw that away. But I don't want you to wake up in a cold sweat at the end of the night, in the middle of the night and like, I should have kept that receipt. So if there's any kind of waffling, I always opt for keeping, strangely enough. And then, if I'm there for another session, they're like, okay, that thing I kept last time, I don't need it, I've decided. So I think just whether you're working with an organizer or not, just giving yourself that permission, like what is happening in my current life? Am I still doing that project and I need all of those notes from that project? Maybe that project is done. Maybe I've moved on from it, and that's okay. Especially you ADHDers, and like you just said with your woodworking, you're so creative and you have so many ideas and so many projects, but sometimes that's kind of a detriment to your own creativity. So limit yourself, like how many projects am I working on right now? And it's okay to let go of the other stuff, and like wood is still going to exist in the world in 30 years, well, hopefully, on this planet, but that's a whole nother discussion. But it's okay to be in the here and now so that, especially here in Denver, like we had a big snowstorm, like get that car in that garage and protect your car versus protecting the wood that you're not using at the moment.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. I love that piece about permission. And I think humans really need that. Like as we all know, I do a lot of health and fitness stuff, but sometimes depending on the client, I have some clients that just want to like go, 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 go. And I have to say, I'm giving you permission to rest.
Yep.
Like take a day off. Like I'm the trainer. I'm the one. And I was like, no, 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 you need to be able to give yourself permission. Like it is okay for you to take a day of rest or even like eat something, go eat a hamburger and fries. Like you have permission. And we are all in charge of our lives and our decisions and our thoughts. And that's like the only thing we actually have control over on this planet. And whether it's like our conditioning or our background or just ADHD humans tend to have this people-pleasing tendency more because we have defiance disorder and some other things, but we don't take feedback well. If it's not positive, even if we asked for it, like because of our emotional regulation, like we take all feedback to heart. But it's just so interesting how someone who are usually paying to do something gives us permission to do the simplest things. And we're like, yeah, okay, thank you. We needed that.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
knowing that, yeah, sometimes just telling yourself, I give myself permission to whatever it is. I think that's great.
Yeah, and even just the concept of body doubling and the ADHD brain, just having me there allows them, like a lot of times my clients then start working on another organizing project while I'm there doing, what they hired me to do, because they're like, oh, like, or they're like, oh, now I'm going to sit and pay my bills. Like there's something about that, having me in your home office that just allows your brain to focus and get what you needed to be done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I love that. It's so important. Another key secret for ADHDers is
absolutely.
you can call a friend you trust and tell them that they're going to come over, or say, like, tell them to tell you that they're going to come over, and then you'll
Yep.
do like crazy cleaning and organizing and be like, you don't even have to show up, just say you're going to come over, and
Right.
we get so much done in that little bit of time. But yeah, body doubling is huge, life-changing for many of us.
hmm
Janice, how did you get into this field? You said you were a teacher before. What made you jump from teacher to organizer, professional organizer?
Yeah, the short answer is burnout, but so I started teaching in 2006, and then 2008 they started laying off all the teachers during the financial crisis, and that was me. And they basically laid off and rehired teachers through 2012. So already a very difficult job, and then you're fighting for it and all of that. So in the midst of those layoffs, I was just looking for odd jobs, and I started working for a friend's small business. And it's the stuff I hear all the time now, but it was new to me then. He's like, I can't see the floor of my office. I can't see my desktop. I can't find that invoice I'm looking for. I don't know what to do with these receipts, all of that. So kind of business flow, if you will. So I went in and, helped him set up a filing system, and, we could scan this, shred this, this is where the receipts go, all of that. And I fell in love with it. It was like so satisfying. And organizing is very natural to me. It's what I've been doing my whole life. I mean, you could tell the line down, the line down the middle of my room when I shared my room with my sister, and in my dorm room and all of that, like that, that was me. So, and in the midst of that, I was told that professional organizing was a thing as I was telling people what I was doing. And it was still not quite in the vernacular at the time, and looked it up, and sure enough, there was National Association. I started networking and going to those meetings, and just, love the atmosphere of it. It was like so empowering, and, it was like mostly women entrepreneurs, and coming from public education where everything is just so heavy, and, everyone's exhausted at all the meetings, just having that feeling. And I was like, okay, so once I admitted out loud that I was burnt out and could resign from the district for my physical and mental health, um, then I resigned and started my own business in 2015, resigned in 2014, started my business in 2015, and never been happier, never been healthier. Yeah, so that was my journey.
I love that for you. It makes such a difference to enjoy your work,
Absolutely.
because so much of your life is work, you
Yep.
know? And I know I work with a lot of teachers, and it can be such a rewarding job, but it can also be, it's one of the hardest jobs out there. Like, these people
Yep.
care so much and are overworked and underpaid and underappreciated, and so many in burnout. And I can just really, I'm so happy for you, and I'm so glad that you found something that you like.
Thank you. And I
Yeah.
realized even during my teaching years that my organizational skills really helped me hang on as long as I did. I mean, I was like, just by my my fingernails at a certain point, but that really got me through the day. Like I didn't leave the school until my desk was clear, until, tomorrow's lessons were set up. And that really helped my sanity. As much as my sanity was dwindling, that kept me going. So
Perfect.
happy to help others now.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I want to dig into chaos around you. I just need to readjust myself. because
Go for it.
I injured my back very, very badly while installing kitchen cupboards. And I'm sitting on a heat pad, but it's sliding down. We take movement
Gosh.
for granted, my friends, until we break ourselves. I'll be fine. I just need a few days. Ooh! Okay, so I love that you said like you always organized your desk and everything was nicely put away before you left work. And I think that's really important because us ADHDers, what I've learned the more I dig into this is more than regular humans, we need a clean surface. We need our surroundings to be clear so that our mind can be clear. And one of the reasons they say it's attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity or not, I've combined, so I have all of it. That's not what it is at all. What it is it's not attention deficit, it's attention on everything all the time. So I say like a regular neurotypical is a flashlight and they can shine it on the thing that they want to focus on, or an ADHDer has like one of those huge floodlights that's like you see everything all the time. And whether we know it or not, when our like this, I'm not even showing you what it looks like in here because I have a kitchen renovation. I got home from a cruise and I dumped everything. But when our environment is a mess, our mind is also a mess. Even if it's the hardest for us to like do the cleaning up and organizing, but we will excel in a very clear space. So if you were to come into someone's home who has ADHD or office, where do you say, what do you, and I'm sure this varies from human to human, but where do you start?
I tend to start, I always ask what is driving them the most crazy. So like what kind of keeps them up at night? What do they think of as soon as they wake up in the morning, or what during the day, throughout the course of their day is kind of like, oh, that's just not working. Like whatever it is, I have to, run to work, I have to get the kids, or I have to work on this project. I can't deal with that right now, but like that's driving me nuts. Like that tends to be where I start. And then sometimes when we're clearing those surfaces, and I always start, and that's a really good point you made, is I always start with what we can see first. So you may want to get, the cabinets or drawers organized, but in order for you to, one, be happy that you hired somebody to do this for you, like to end with like a clear surface is so satisfying, and that's the place to start. Then sometimes in order to put things away, we have to delve into the drawers and cabinets and all of that. And that's why I say like back to those piles with purpose, like having a place for things. So when everything is out, then kind of nothing is out. If everything is important, nothing is important. Like that quote where, yes, out of sight, out of mind, but you can't have everything out. You can't, you like exactly like you said, like now you're kind of, you can't see anything. It's all just kind of white noise to you. So that's where labeling becomes huge. So if you are, putting those piles into folders or things like that, like label that folder. Like don't, you always think that I'm going to remember that red folder is whatever, but you're not, because,
For sure.
and I don't mean just you, I mean any of us,
Oh,
like I'm
for
never
sure.
going to remember what that folder was.
Mhm.
So label everything, and label cabinets, label drawers, like that's okay, it's your space. Some people are a little self-conscious about having labels everywhere, but again, it's your space and it's helping you function, like that's okay. There's kind of ways to make it a little more subtle. You can kind of put the label like right inside the drawer, so it's not, right on the front. If you want like you just got new cabinets, you don't want labels everywhere, I get that. But you can always do it on the inside as well. So yeah, so that's kind of the way, that's where I start, and then that's kind of how I progress through the organizing. And I always have decluttering is 75% of most of my sessions. That's always top of mind, because the idea of first of all, you can't organize clutter. If there's too much stuff for the space, if there's too much irrelevant items in the space, then there's nothing I can do. I can just kind of shift things around and
Yeah.
carry on with my day. So decluttering is the way to go, is the way I start any session. And that really kind of hones in, okay, what belongs in the space, what is important to you. And that's when I'm organizing. I'm not going to organize the stuff that doesn't belong in that space in the first place. And honestly, that's, like I said, probably 75% of what I'm finding in those cluttered spaces.
Do you find it's more challenging for an ADHDer to decide what's important when belonging, or is it like a regular human?
I think it's pretty across the board. I think it's not necessarily about, it doesn't make the decisions harder. And honestly, if I looked closely at each client, I think ADHDers might make easier, like quicker decisions now that they've seen, because I always sort everything first. So now I'm sorting by category. So you may have had a surface, covered with, bills and socks and batteries and crayons from your kids', art project or whatever. And once I kind of separate those items and make it okay that they were all together,
Mhm.
and there is no judgment, and there's, we're just looking at batteries right now, don't worry about it. Then it's like, oh, those batteries, like I need to bring those back to the garage. Like, oh, those crayons go to my kids' room. And that part of the process is actually probably a lot easier for ADHDers, because now they're seeing the things individually. And like you said, like I often have to use my teaching skills here a little bit and have to, like, bring you back. Okay, we're not looking at that pile. Usually that you want to start, you guys always want to start in the piles I haven't even sorted yet.
Yeah.
So I always kind of, bring you back in, like, okay, we're starting over here. We're being systematic about it. Like I'm here to kind of keep you with that flow. And then when I do send you, like, hey, can you, bring this item back to your kids' room? I always remind you, like, but come back. Like, don't forget to come back, because you're going to go to your kids' room and then you're going to see the laundry, and then I'm going to hear you at, putting a load of laundry on. Like, nope. Like, come back. It's okay. So I think having those teaching skills
Uh,
allows me, or I give myself permission to kind of wrangle my clients that way, that maybe someone else without that 8 years of wrangling children would do.
yeah. No, I think that's beautiful, because I was like, it's almost like you turn the organization or decluttering switch on. And we have
Right.
ADHD. So you're bringing the
Yep.
crayons back to room and you see the laundry and you're like, I'm
Yep.
organizing in this room now. Dad's like, we're in the other room.
Yep.
Go back.
Right. Right.
100%. I could see myself doing
And I think that's exactly why you feel like I'm decluttering all the time. I'm organizing all the time. And then you look at the room and you see no progress,
progress. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
because your brain wants to go kind of in the middle of the pile. And I'm there to kind of, we're going to go left to right. We're going to go top to bottom. We're only staying in this room. And that's why I always ask clients that they have to choose the space for that session.
Mhm.
So it's not like, oh, I want the whole house. Well, that's lovely. And we can absolutely do that. But like, where are we starting?
Yeah.
And so even if we're starting in the kitchen, okay, we're doing the kitchen counter and only the kitchen counter right now. And then we're moving on to to those cabinets or whatever. So yeah,
Awesome.
you want to actually, and even if you're doing this on your own, like left to right, top to bottom, like stay in this space, like all of that. And if you're doing it on your own, I always recommend like having just like a little basket or bin or pile of like, this goes in another space, but don't leave the space yet.
Don't leave the space yet.
Don't
You
leave the
hear
space.
that? Stay in the space. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. And here's a trick. Catch the thought before the action happens. So if you're not aware of your thinking and something comes to your brain, like our automatic reflex is to be like, yeah, I'm going to the kids' room. Catch that and say, I am deciding to stay focused here, to stay in this room. And if you need to, I have a old school, I can set a 1 5. You can tell I'm getting old because now I'm like, I can't see it as well as I used to. 1 5 3 10 15 20 30-minute timer on here. So I don't have to go to my phone because that's going to distract me. And if you know you really want to get out of the room, set a timer, whether that's 1 minute, 3 minute, and be like, I am challenging my brain here a little to be here, because you'll get more organizing done. You'll get more progress. So that's going to give you dopamine for your brain to be like, ooh, I set out to do something and I can see progress. And then number 3, you're also training your brain to stay focused. And that's a transferable skill that can go to something else. Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
hard,
Love it.
but we do it.
And it's okay to, especially if you're working on your own, to do small increments of time. Like it doesn't have to be like usually work in 4-hour sessions. It absolutely does not have to be. Do not set your timer for 4 hours. Like that's not going to happen. So the way that I work with clients, so I do everything in small chunks. And I do this for all clients, regardless of if you're neurotypical or not. And so I'll sort a small chunk. And usually that's like when you have the most anxiety because I just showed up and I'm in your space. So I let you go have a cup of tea, cup of coffee, go have a snack. I'll sort the first chunk. Then you come through, you make the decisions. And like I said, UHD or ADHDers are pretty quick at the decisions. Like, is that keep? Is it donate? Is it toss? And I have the sorting bins with me. So it gives you, again, it's that permission. So I have the donate bag, I have the recycle bin, I have the trash bag with me. And sometimes it never occurred to clients that they could just go through and like toss stuff. Like just, what do you mean I can just donate half this room? Sounds good. So and then once you've made those decisions, then I send you away. And usually like that's when it's like, okay, and I start to see your eyes glaze over and that's enough attention for you.
Mhm.
You take your break.
Yeah.
And then based on what you're keeping, now I'm organizing the space, and then I'm sorting the next chunk. So think of the part where I'm with you, like that's all you need to do is, especially if you're doing this on your own, like set a small timer and you're just sorting. And then timer goes off and then you go take a break, rest your mind. Now you come back, you're making decisions, 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is. Take your break. Now I'm coming back and I'm gonna, organize the space. Don't forget to label, so just give yourself small chunks of time to get through it.
I love that. And I love how you explained what it would be like if you go into someone's house, because what happens with us is we know the outcome and then our brain will create like a gazillion different ways of how that would look and what that would look like. And I think that's one of the reasons why transitioning task is very challenging. And you, as you said, you're like, oh, I can just like donate half this stuff, or I just have to create piles because our brain likes that. But
Yep.
switching, even if we think of like what our house would look like when it's organized in whatever time frame, let's say like a month or whatever, for a normal person, then they would start taking action. And for us, we literally like think of all the ways that could happen, what could get in the way, why would we stop doing that, and like make it such a big deal that the next step would be like, go on to Janice's website, give her a call. But we don't even if I'm sure there's people on here that didn't know who are living in Denver that like, I can just hire someone and this shit can be taken care of.
Right.
So let's go there. Like, how does someone know it's time to hire an expert? Because you've been saying you can do this on your own too. So when should someone try this on their own? And then when should you come into the picture?
So I would say, I mean, always try it on your own first. I feel like it's a life skill that, and it is a skill that can be developed. So it doesn't mean that your brain just can't organize and it's not going to happen. And once you've tried on your own, I think from going on your own to hiring a professional is when there's been consequences. I think, like you mentioned, I'm late on that bill. If you're late to work because you can't find your keys, if you like, once those consequences of your disorganization starts coming into your life, I think that's the time to hire somebody, a professional who kind of knows and can set up those systems for you. Because sometimes and especially if you've been undiagnosed your whole life, that you don't know even what systems are or what works because you've been just told that you're just a chaotic, mess, and that's how you're just supposed to live. So I think trying to find those bits of time to do it on your own is definitely the way to start, because then you're going to know how your brain works. Like, that makes sense to you.
Mhm.
I may have never come up with, like, put the medical bills, under this pile or whatever, but that made sense to you and go with it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But it's really when, like I said, those consequences, once it becomes kind of detrimental to your livelihood, to your health, to your finances, like that's the time. And especially, I love speaking with you, who's all about movement and all of that. Like, if you don't have enough space because of the clutter to move your body, you don't have room for for a yoga mat to go down in your living room or whatever it is. Not everybody is going to have a gym or whatever. Like, that's kind of the time. Like, okay, I can't even do the healthy things that I'm trying to do for my body as well. So, yeah.
I love that. And humans in general, we want this like all or nothing mindset. I
Mhm.
mean, we have this all or nothing mindset. And is there kind of like an in between where someone's learning? Because ideally, what we want, right, is to get the thing organized and then to keep it organized for the rest of our life and hopefully more organized. But what happens when you're kind of in the middle? Like, you've started to organize maybe a room or two, or let's say you are more organized and you're not keeping it organized. So does that mean you're not following the system, or is the system broken, or do we need to train ourselves better? Is it just a human thing? We're going back to our old habits. What do you think is going on there?
I'd say it probably depends on the person and the situation. It may be just old habits, and habits are really hard to break. I understand that. It may be also just being also mindful of what is coming into your home as well. So I always say, kind of stop it at the door. So when you're not at home and maybe you're an impulse buyer, or whatever, you're all about the swag and the freebies and the deals and the sales, being mindful of that behavior and not letting it come in, because we can go through your closet and declutter and organize it and set up a system, and all your favorite clothes are right where they need to be, and you love it, and then you're constantly shopping, and those Amazon boxes are showing up, or you're going on shopping trips or whatever. A lot of times it's the acquiring that becomes the catalyst to, like, not maintaining. Sometimes there may just be a system or a part of the system that just didn't quite work for you.
Mhm.
And what I hear a lot from clients is like, well, I'm supposed to blank, fill in the blank. I'm supposed to do, like, this is where the clothes are supposed to go. This is where the spices are supposed to go in my kitchen. This is where the files are supposed to go. And that, I always say, but says who? Like, who based on what, and we've been somehow trained, and social media has its place in the world, but sometimes it doesn't. It's not very helpful to us that we have this vision of like, this is what a home is supposed to be, this is what a closet is supposed to be. And like, it's okay to just, as long as there's things are together that belong together, like that's, if like is with like, that's organized, so that don't worry about what you should be doing or think you should be doing in the space. And then another reason is just life happens. You might get busier. You might be, I mean, maybe you hurt your back. You can't quite get things together. I mean, a myriad of things could happen that kind of stop you in your tracks, and you're not able to keep that organization system up. So when I work with clients, like I said, I work in 4-hour sessions, and they only have to commit to 1 4-hour session. So I definitely have clients that are maintenance clients that, maybe I'll hear from them in a month, in 6 months, in a year. And then we do that fine tuning. Or we're working on, and they're like, oh, this space is working. Now we need to work on this space or whatever. Or I did my closet. Now the kitchen just doesn't make any sense. I also do virtual organizing, which I will admit it probably isn't the most effective with ADHDers, because I can't jump. I'm over here. I literally can't jump in and lend a helping hand. So virtual organizing is kind of my least favorite, but it's there for, and those are only 45-minute sessions. And again, with the ADHD, your brain, like I need you focused and committed to that 45 minutes. You can't take a phone call. You can't go make a sandwich. Like I need you focused. And then we can do those little tweaks. If you just can't figure out like a certain area, just need to get started. Like, where do I even start with this? Even if it is a big project. So that's available too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you both of those questions of like, if you
Yay.
wanted to work, if someone wanted to hire Janice. So if you're in the Denver area, do you go to Colorado Springs or Fort Collins, or are you just Denver?
No, I have a 20-mile radius of kind of, so basically Denver Metro, just kind of the surrounding communities around Denver. And then, like I said, I also have an organizer working for me in Los Angeles. So I don't know how wide your audience is, but if anybody's in Los Angeles, we can help you too.
Yeah. And I think 4 hours is a great place to start. And I love that you explained what that looks like. Like, go have your snack and your cup of coffee and I'll get started. And then you can come in here and help. I think often we're either too attached to our clutter or we're too used to it and we don't see it.
You don't see it. Yep.
A really good example. So my amazing chiropractor has these little mints. They're like the lifesaver mint, the white ones. And I always take it, but it's like too sweet for me. So halfway through, I put it somewhere. And my husband the other day got in my car and he's like, that life-saving mint has been on the floor in the same spot for, he's like, I think it's 7 weeks and I haven't taken your car to get cleaned. And I haven't, he's like, I honestly just wanted to see how long it would be until you picked that up. And I go, oh, I see. I was like, I saw that in my brain once, but now it's just like part of the environment. Like, I don't even see it. And it bothers him so much. And I was like, well, if it bothers you, like, pick it up. That's in my brain. Like, or they'll ask where something is, and I can be like, oh, that screw is in the drawer, right? But like, I can see it and I know where it is. It's not organized. It's just, it becomes part of your environment. And I think it's important to have a system. And we rebel against systems and we hate systems, but we do the best with systems. And I think Janice can help you create a system, even if you want to do this on your own. I think maybe doing a virtual 45-minute, she can tell you where to start, or maybe try on your own. And then you'll have a lot of questions, I'm sure. Being like, what do I do with this? How do I even start my piles? How do I name my piles? How do I organize my piles? How do I like throw out things? So I think reaching out to someone who actually knows what they're doing so that you can get that success that you want. And obviously you're listening to this because you're interested about organization, or it's like so overwhelming you don't know where to start. We're going to put her information, how to contact her and her website, all that stuff under the video. But before we end, I heard you say some great things today. Stop it at the door. So that's another thing with ADHDers is we seek dopamine. I have a hair in my mouth, excuse me. And shopping gives us dopamine. So I think that was a great one. If you have a shopping addiction, let's chat and talk about other ways to chase dopamine. But stopping, does it really need to come into your house? So I think that was a great one. And you also said like is like. So as long as they're organized in your own way, it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else's brain except for yours. And maybe the humans who share your house with you. So sometimes I've had to explain to my husband, this is organized in a certain way for my brain. And you could see him be like, I would not even put that together. And I was like, and we're going to keep it here for my brain. I was like, you can adapt. And then my favorite other organization that I think I learned from social media was don't put it down, put it away. Don't, like, once everything is organized and it has a home, like, where does this live? Don't put it down, don't put it away. Because what happens is we'll put it down and then it takes a long time for it to get back. Do you have any great sayings like that that you can give out there for the humans?
I probably do. I have a lot of, but on the spot, probably not. But I have lots of them. But that is a good one. And a lot of times, and I guess back to the question of like when should you ask for help is like when you don't know where a way is. Like if you have the thing, but it doesn't have a home, like it does, there's like nowhere to put it. And I think that's often what happens. It's like, oh, well, I'll figure that out later. And then later becomes another pile of stuff on top of that. So, can I think of any euphemisms off the top? No, probably not. But I have lots of them in the moment for sure.
Oh, yeah, it comes out. It comes out all the time. I have a bunch of things I say, and lots of them are not mine, but people think they're mine. And I was like, oh, I stole that from someone else. I'm not that bright. Yay. Well, it was such a pleasure to chat with you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And yes, guys, if you need Janice's help, her information is going to be below this video, and reach out and when your space is organized, your brain is going to do better. I can promise you that for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Adios. Yay. Good job.
Thank you.